When the season began to change, I opened the shared shopping app that my husband and I used, planning to buy a few shirts for him. I had just added some items to the cart when a "You may also like" section suddenly popped up, recommending a women's lipstick priced at 9,999 yuan. I didn't even know why I clicked on it, but I did. Then, in the customer reviews, I saw a photo of a handwritten card with handwriting that was unmistakably familiar. It read, "To my dearest Hannah, this lipstick shade always reminds me of your passion and fire that night. Love, Mark." My hands froze, and my heart went cold. I immediately called my husband. "Did you use our shared account to buy something for someone else?" I asked. There was a short silence on the other end before he chuckled. "Huh? Oh, maybe one of my buddies borrowed it to buy something during the Chikshi festival sale. I'm working a night shift right now, let's talk later." Before he could say more, I hung up, opened the purchase history, and when I saw the delivery address, my whole body went numb. If Mark had prepared a surprise for me, then maybe I should return the favor, with a shock of my own. I drove straight to Sterling & Hall law firm, where Mark worked. The grand, flower-filled lobby was quiet and empty. I walked straight in, down the long corridor. Through the frosted glass of the tea room, I saw two people hugging each other tightly. Mark was lowering his head, pressing a kiss on the top of a woman's head, an intimate, tender gesture. And that woman was Hannah Lee, the junior associate he always bragged about, the rising star of the firm. I pushed the door open. Mark immediately let go of her, his face showing a flash of panic. Hannah, on the other hand, stayed calm. She brushed a hand through her slightly messy hair and smiled politely. "Emily, what brings you here?" she asked. "In the shopping history, there's a women's lipstick," I said evenly. "The delivery address and phone number belong to you." "Oh, that?" Hannah blinked, as if she had just remembered something, and her expression turned a little embarrassed. "I used Mark's account to buy a gift for a client," she explained. "You know how it is, signing a year-long consulting contract with Lin Ocean Group makes him a diamond-tier VIP, so the discount was amazing. The company reimbursed it anyway. I just wanted to save a bit. I'm really sorry if that caused any misunderstanding." Her explanation sounded perfect, without a single flaw. But I knew Mark too well. He was a man of strict professional principles, always separating work from personal life. He would never allow anyone, especially a colleague, to use our shared account to buy a gift for work. While she was talking, my eyes drifted to the pen clipped to her suit pocket, a luxury fountain pen. She noticed my gaze and looked startled, quickly changing the subject. "Oh, please don't misunderstand. Mark was just helping me analyze a case. We just finished discussing it." "Misunderstand?" I repeated softly, my tone filled with irony. A trace of unease flashed in her eyes. "That pen, I'd had a friend in Germany custom make it for our first wedding anniversary. The cap was engraved with our initials, ES and MC. There was only one in the world." Almost instinctively, Hannah raised her hand to cover her pocket. I smiled gently and took a step closer. "That's a beautiful pen. A client gave it to you?" I asked. Her face shifted slightly. "Oh, actually, I won it during the last team building event," she stammered, trying to stay composed. "Really?" I nodded, then turned to Mark. "Well, since it's supposedly a company prize, the ownership might need to be clarified by HR. But as the person who originally gave it, I believe I have every right to take it back." Hannah's face went pale. All color drained from it. I didn't say another word. I turned around and walked out. When I returned to my own law office, I locked myself inside my office and immediately called my associate Alan, asking him to help me with something. My voice was so calm it carried no emotion. "Get me Hannah Lee's background check, plus all recent communication and financial transaction records between her and Mark. Also pull every case file Sterling & Hall has taken on recently, especially any that present a conflict of interest with us." Alan was silent for a few seconds, then his tone went serious. "Are you sure you want to do this?" "Yes," I said and hung up. I sat in the dark room with my thoughts in knots. Not long after, Mark's call came through. "Haha, don't get the wrong idea," his voice steady as always, trying to explain. "Hannah is just a junior associate. I was only showing her the ropes, giving her a little guidance. In my heart there's only you, Emily Shen." The pet name he used, once my favorite, now sounded garish and nauseating. Maybe I had been a faint light in his life for a brief time, but now his orbit had shifted away from me. I answered a few perfunctory things to end the call, and then dropped it. Alan worked incredibly fast. Less than an hour later, I received an encrypted message. I clicked the link and entered the password, an abbreviation of my name plus our wedding anniversary date, and it unlocked on the first try. Inside the cloud folder was Hannah's personal journal, organized by date with photos. The newest post was a close-up of a fountain pen, the limited edition pen I had once given Mark. The caption read, "Using M's pen to write our future. Sunflowers bloom only for me. My sunflower, my M pen. My sunflower name, my M pen." Both had become spoils. Trophies claimed by another woman. I scrolled on. The next post showed two hands clasped together, proudly displaying tickets to the hit film Little Demon, Big Waves. That day had been our anniversary, yet he had lied, saying he had to travel to Van City for work. I quickly jumped to Cheeksy Festival entries. There was a photo taken in my bedroom, Hannah wearing my silk nightgown, smiling sweetly and seductively. At that moment my scalp tingled and my whole body shook. I don't know how much time passed before, near dawn, my phone rang and yanked me out of the pain. The court's electronic filing system had sent over a document, the Tianhai Group economic lawsuit I was responsible for. The plaintiff's side had uploaded their files, evidence exchanges, and the points they wanted to confront before trial. The plaintiff's attorney's name was clearly signed, Hannah Lee. I opened the attached documents and read every line. When I reached the witness examination outline, the blood in my veins seemed to freeze. Every question, every logical trap in that outline matched my draft to the letter, the draft I had handwritten and never given to any AI. That outline was my ace to use in court to utterly dismantle the opposing side. I shot up and dashed into Mark's study. On his desk lay a notebook, open to a page filled in that familiar handwriting. He had written an analysis of the background of my witnesses and lay out many sharp lines of attack. The title was unmistakable. For Hannah. He hadn't just betrayed our marriage, he had personally sabotaged my career, using my own blood and tears as fuel to prepare victory for his lover. My stomach twisted violently. I had to brace myself against the wall to stay standing. It turned out the person who knows you best is also the one who can stab you deepest. At the intermediate court hearing for the Tianhai case, the courtroom was packed. I sat with the defense team, keeping my expression composed as I glanced across at the plaintiff's table. Today, Hannah wore a high-end suit, her hair neatly pinned, her confidence radiant. The court began. She was the first to speak. The plaintiff's core argument was that the defendant, Tianhai Group, the plaintiff argued that the defendant had committed serious contract fraud. The chain of evidence she presented was solid, and her delivery was fluent, logical, and persuasive. Every word, every phrase that came out of her mouth was something I had once stayed up all night writing, part of the confidential draft I had guarded so carefully. I had once believed it was the bond of two people in law, pursuing justice side by side. Now I finally understood. It had only ever been my own illusion. And Mark was the coldest thief of them all. What made it even more ironic was that Mark was sitting right there in the front row among the audience, attending as an expert consultant invited by Hannah Lee herself. He was dressed neatly, his expression calm and focused, his eyes full of pride and admiration as he looked at Hannah, as if he were admiring his greatest masterpiece. He didn't spare me a single glance, as if we had never existed to each other. The courtroom was utterly silent when Hannah finished her statement. Her presentation was flawless. The judge turned to me. "Counsel for the defense, you may begin your rebuttal." At that moment, the corner of Mark's mouth lifted slightly, a faint smirk barely visible, but in his eyes I saw the certainty that I had no way out. Hannah, too, looked at me with the calm confidence of someone already claiming victory. I turned off my phone screen and, under the gaze of everyone in the courtroom, rose slowly to my feet. My movement was subtle, almost gentle, yet it instantly drew every eye in the room. The judge looked at me expectantly. "Counsel for the defense?" Mark's smile froze. Hannah's eyes flickered with confusion and unease. I didn't start my rebuttal right away. Instead, I turned to the judge. "Your Honor, I began, my voice clear and steady through the microphone. Before proceeding with the rebuttal, the defense requests permission to question the plaintiff's expert consultant, Mr. Mark Chen. The moment my words landed, murmurs rippled through the courtroom. I paused briefly, my gaze cutting through the crowd, until it locked precisely on the man whose face had already begun to change color. Then I added calmly, because Mr. Mark Chen happens to be my husband. The courtroom exploded in noise. Countless pairs of eyes darted between me, Mark, and Hannah. Shock, disbelief, and astonishment etched across every face. Each stare was like a knife, slicing through the perfect professional facade Mark had spent years constructing. I ignored the whispers and plugged the USB drive I'd brought into the computer before me. The courtroom's large screen lit up, displaying the witness examination outline prepared by Hannah, the very document that had been hailed as flawless. "The strategy used by attorney Hannah Lee is indeed impressive," I said evenly, as I opened the document's properties panel. Its core logic relies on a unique, three-layered evidence trap model. On the screen, the document's creation and modification timestamps were clearly visible. Hannah's face turned white. "This model," I continued, "is my personal creation, one that has never been published. I'd like to ask Attorney Lee to explain to the court the purpose and reasoning behind the inverted cross-examination phase of this model." Every gaze in the courtroom turned toward her. She stood there trembling, her lips quivering, unable to utter a single word. Because she wasn't the creator, she was merely the executor. She had no idea what the theoretical foundation behind it even was. "Your Honor," she suddenly burst into tears, turning toward the bench, her face full of pitiful innocence. "Mark, I didn't know anything. She's framing me. I didn't plagiarize, I swear." A classic act of a green tea damsel. Mark couldn't sit still anymore. He jumped up and strode toward her, standing protectively in front of Hannah like a knight defending justice. His face darkened as he glared at me, his voice a low growl. "Emily Shen, are you insane? Are you trying to destroy everything here?" I looked at him and almost laughed. "Destroy?" I repeated, letting out a small, bitter chuckle. Stepping closer, I leaned in just enough for only him to hear. "Mark, the show has only just begun." Then I stepped back, lifted the microphone again, and swept my gaze across the entire courtroom. My voice wasn't loud, but every word cut through the air like a knife. "The person who truly destroyed everything isn't me. It's the man who stole his wife's work, propped up his mistress to advance her career, and shamelessly plagiarized, then dared to call it a stroke of genius." I looked straight at Mark, smiling calmly. "Tell me, Attorney Mark Chen, who do you think I'm talking about?" Mark's face turned from ashen gray to deathly pale. The courtroom erupted into chaos, the noise boiling like water on a stove. The presiding judge banged his gavel hard. "Order." His sharp gaze swept across the room before settling on Mark. "Expert consultant for the plaintiff, Mr. Mark Chen, are you in fact the husband of the defense attorney, Miss Emily Shen?" Mark swallowed hard and nodded stiffly. "Yes." The room exploded again. The judge's face darkened. "This constitutes a severe conflict of interest. Why did you not disclose this before the trial?" Mark opened his mouth, but no words came out. What could he possibly say? That he was here to help his mistress defeat his wife? Hannah's face was ghostly white, her legs buckling until Mark had to steady her. "Given this new circumstance," the judge declared gravely, "which could seriously affect the fairness of this trial, the court will be adjourned." The sound of the gavel echoed like thunder. The first declaration of victory was mine. I gathered my things calmly under a storm of mixed stares and walked out of the courtroom. Mark didn't follow me. He had more than enough trouble to deal with himself. But I had underestimated just how shameless and cunning he could be. Less than 3 hours later, social media exploded with a headline. "Shocking. Famous female attorney stages meltdown in court, publicly attacks ex-husband to sabotage colleague." The post spread like wildfire. It came from a well-known legal media outlet, written with sharp, eloquent language that oozed subtle malice. They painted me as a jealous, irrational woman, someone deranged by heartbreak, cruel enough to tear apart her ex-husband and colleague just to win a case. The article included photos. One caught me mid-questioning, my face distorted by movement. Another showed Hannah hiding behind Mark, tears streaming down her face in a picture of fragile innocence. And one more, Mark staring into the camera, eyes weary, full of helpless pain. Beneath the article was an anonymous interview, clearly from Mark himself. Our marriage had been broken for a long time, it read. We've been separated. I never expected her to take such an extreme step to get revenge. The draft outline she accused me of stealing was just a preliminary sketch we discussed back when we lived together. She must have written it down afterward. She's deliberately twisting the truth to hurt me and Attorney Lee. Hannah is a talented young lawyer. I don't want her to be dragged into this because of me. Every single word was pushing me onto the scaffold of public disgrace. I was branded as a petty, vindictive woman incapable of separating personal emotion from professional duty. The comments were vicious, so cruel I could barely look at them. Emily Shen is terrifying. You never really know someone until you break up. Poor Mark, what a nightmare of an ex-wife. I feel bad for Hannah. She didn't even do anything wrong. Using a marriage to sabotage a colleague? What happened to professional ethics? Public opinion, sharper than any court ruling, cut deep. My phone wouldn't stop ringing. Partners, friends, colleagues, even strangers somehow got my number, calling either to ask or to gawk. Alan burst into my office, phone in hand. You need to see this, he said. Sterling and Hall just released an official statement. I took the phone and read. The firm announced that attorney Mark Chen would be temporarily suspended from all duties to cooperate with an internal investigation. It sounded fair, but in truth, it was a calculated move, sacrificing a pawn to save the king. They're trying to spin the narrative, Alan said sharply. Turn this into a personal feud between you and Mark. That way, the firm can detach itself from the scandal completely. Then, when the dust settles, they'll let Mark take all the blame and drag you down with him. His analysis was spot on. Outside the window, the city lights were coming on, cold and bright. I stared at them and whispered, Mark, you really think using the media as a weapon will ruin me? I let out a quiet, bitter laugh. You've underestimated me. I picked up my phone and dialed the number Alan had given me. Hello, is this Mr. Truong, the journalist? I said into the phone. Yes, who's speaking? This is Emily Shen. I have attorney Hannah Lee's personal journal in my possession. I think you'll be very interested in it. There was silence on the other end for 5 full seconds. Truong was one of the most respected investigative journalists in the field, known for exposing corruption and never bowing to power. When he finally spoke, his voice trembled with restrained excitement. Attorney Shen, do you realize what you're saying? I do, I replied calmly. I'll send you the meeting address in 30 minutes. I hung up and turned to Alan. Do something for me. Send a copy of Hannah's journal anonymously to the disciplinary committee of the Bar Association. Say it came from someone inside Sterling and Hall who couldn't bear the guilt any longer. Alan's eyes lit up. You're hitting both fronts at once. That's right. I nodded. The fire of public opinion must burn hotter, and the blade of justice must fall at the same time. Half an hour later, I met Truong at a quiet cafe tucked inside a narrow alley. He was a middle-aged man with black-rimmed glasses, looking gentle and refined. I didn't waste time on small talk. I slid a USB drive across the table. What's inside this will shake the entire legal community, I said. Photos, timestamps, messages, all pointing to one thing. Mark Chen and Hannah Lee are not only involved in an illicit affair, but have been colluding professionally for quite some time. Truong's sharp eyes gleamed like knives. He picked up the USB and asked, How do I know you're not making this up? I smiled faintly. Among the files, there's a photo taken in my bedroom. Hannah's wearing my silk nightgown. It's a handmade, limited edition from an Italian designer. Only a few were made last year. I wore it once. You can verify it through the purchase history. It was paid with our joint credit card, under both my and Mark's names. And that pen, the one with the engraved initials, was custom-made in Germany. The workshop there keeps detailed order records. Trust me, the evidence is even stronger than you imagine. Truong studied me, his expression shifting from caution to admiration. Attorney Shen, he said quietly, you're remarkably composed. I lifted my coffee cup, my tone steady. When you've been betrayed, you lose the right to lose control. After Truong left, I returned to my office. My phone rang again. It was Mark. I didn't pick up. I blocked the call immediately. Less than a minute later, a text came through. Stop this, Emily. Don't drag us both down. What good does destroying me do for you? We were once husband and wife. Do you really have to be this ruthless? The phrase, "we're husband and wife," made my stomach turn. I replied with a single photo, the one of Hannah wearing my nightgown, posing in my bedroom. Then I blocked every form of contact with him. Before dawn, breaking news forced me out of bed. Truong had acted faster than I expected. Exclusive investigation, scandal at Sterling and Hall. Behind the genius facade lies plagiarism and collusion. The article hit harder than any from the day before. Every piece of evidence was laid bare, photos, timelines, and text that left no room for denial. A close-up of the engraved pen showing the initials ES and MC. A photo of Hannah in my nightgown, standing in what was unmistakably my wedding bedroom. The caption beneath it read, "Sunflowers only bloom for me." Each word, each image was a slap across Mark and Hannah's faces. The article also included payment records for the nightgown, the receipt for the custom pen order, and a timeline connecting everything, a perfect chain of evidence. Public opinion flipped instantly. The same people who had pitied Mark yesterday now despised him with equal fervor. Comments exploded online. "Oh my God, what a plot twist. Turns out it's adultery and workplace abuse. Mark Chen, you scumbag, stealing your wife's work to gift your mistress, then crying about it in the press? And Hannah Lee, wearing his wife's nightgown? Disgusting. Posing right on someone else's bed, what a textbook green tea act. I'm Team Emily Shen all the way, let this cheating pair burn together." Almost at the same time, the Bar Association released an internal statement. Given that the scandal involving Sterling and Hall law firm has caused major public outrage, the disciplinary committee has officially received evidence and launched a formal investigation into attorneys Mark Chen and Hannah Lee. Two blades drawn at once. I wondered if Mark and Hannah could withstand the blow. Mark couldn't. Not anymore. Within minutes of the Bar Association's announcement, his call came in. This time to Alan's phone. The moment Alan answered, Mark's voice exploded through the speaker, wild and furious. "Tell Emily to pick up the damn phone." Alan switched to speaker so I could hear. My voice was cold as ice. "Mark, what do you want from me?" "Emily Shen, you leaked the journal, didn't you? Are you trying to destroy me?" "I only gave the truth back to the public," I said evenly. "Truth? What truth?" he shouted, nearly incoherent. "Do you have any idea what your truth has done? Sterling and Hall's stock just crashed because of you. My partners kicked me out of the firm. I'm ruined. Is that what you wanted? Are you happy now?" I cut him off, still calm. "Mark, when you stole my legal outline to help your mistress and sabotaged my career, you should have thought about this day. When you let her wear my nightgown and lie on our bed, you should have thought about this day. Everything happening now, you didn't get it from me. You chose it for yourself." On the other end of the line, silence fell, cold and suffocating. Then came the faint, broken sound of Mark's voice, trembling and pleading. I was wrong, Emily. I was really wrong. Please come back. Let's start over. I'll cut things off with Hannah completely. Me sunshine, give me one more chance." Hearing that fake remorse only made my stomach twist in disgust. "Mark," I said softly, "I was never your son. The moment you chose her, your world turned dark." I ended the call without hesitation. There was nothing left to say. But it wasn't over yet. Alan walked in, holding a folder, and laid it on my desk. "I rechecked every case Hannah Lee has ever handled," she said. "And I found something very interesting." I took the file and opened it while she continued. 3 years ago, right after she joined Sterling and Hall, she independently handled a major commercial fraud case. The defendant was a tech company on the brink of bankruptcy. Hannah represented the plaintiff and won the case brilliantly. That win made her famous overnight. I frowned. "What's wrong with that case?" Alan pointed to a document inside the file. This was the key evidence provided by the plaintiff, a company email proving the defendant falsified its financial data. I had someone recover the original data of that email. A chill ran through me. "And the email was real," Alan said firmly, "but the timestamp and several details inside were modified. This was a technically sophisticated manipulation, something way beyond a rookie like Hannah." My heart tightened. I understood instantly. It was Mark, wasn't it? Alan nodded. "Yes, and there's more. I found an encrypted folder in Hannah's cloud drive, the same one that contained her journal. It was labeled Black History." I tried several passwords, and finally, when I entered Mark's birthday, it opened. My hands started to tremble. Alan turned her laptop toward me. On the screen were dozens of messages, original files, and altered versions, each one documenting the entire process of Mark teaching Hannah, step by step, how to falsify evidence and frame the tech company. This wasn't just professional misconduct. This was a crime, evidence tampering and obstruction of justice. I stared at the screen, at Mark's smug instructions, and Hannah's eager responses filled with admiration and devotion, and felt an icy numbness creep through my veins. The adoration in Hannah's messages made my heart grow colder by the second. Then suddenly, a familiar name jumped out at me, Lynn Ocean Corporation. It was the very client Hannah had once mentioned when explaining away that lipstick. I immediately scrolled further down the thread. Mark and Hannah were using the exact same tactics again, this time targeting a rival company of Lynn Ocean. But in Hannah's journal, the lipstick's recipient wasn't listed as anyone from Lynn Ocean at all. It was someone else entirely, Vice President Lee, the deputy general manager of the rival company. A buzzing filled my head as a horrifying realization took shape. This wasn't just infidelity or plagiarism, it was a trap, an elaborate scheme orchestrated by Mark himself. He was the puppeteer, using Hannah as his pawn. Together, they exploited unethical competitive tactics for massive financial gain. And my case with Tianhai Group? That was merely a small, insignificant piece in his much larger game. I immediately instructed Alan to investigate this Vice President Lee. The results came back quickly, and sent a chill down my spine. The company where Vice President Lee worked was the same firm that had won the commercial fraud case 3 years ago. The very case that made Hannah's name famous, and the tech company that Mark and Hannah had worked together to destroy back then, had once been that firm's strongest rival in the market. A web of corruption unfolded before my eyes. Mark had never truly intended to mentor Hannah. He had been training a perfect accomplice, a clean, obedient pawn who would get her hands dirty for him without hesitation. He had taken advantage of her youth, her ambition, her blind devotion, pushing her to the front lines to execute his dirty deals. If she succeeded, the credit would go to her, but the profits, to him. If she failed, or if anything was exposed, Hannah would become the perfect scapegoat, easily disposable. And Hannah, the naive girl lost in love, had no idea. In her journal, she even wrote with excitement and gratitude about how Mark had guided her, praising his wisdom, his brilliance, her words full of admiration and sweetness. She thought it was love. In truth, it was exploitation. I stared at the computer screen, my chest tightening as the evidence glared back at me. A shiver ran through me at the thought. If I hadn't found that lipstick, if I had stayed silent like before, what would have been his next move? Would Mark have used me next, manipulating me into another of his schemes without my knowledge? Maybe he already had. I forced myself to stay calm. This time, the cards in my hand were stronger. My fight was no longer just about revenge, it was about justice. Justice for myself and for the company they had destroyed 3 years ago. The first thing I did was contact Mr. Wong, the founder of that tech company. When the call connected, his voice on the other end was weary and hoarse, heavy with years of exhaustion and bitterness. "Who is this?" he asked faintly. "Good evening, Mr. Wang. My name is Emily Shen. I'm an attorney, and I'd like to speak with you regarding your company's lawsuit from 3 years ago." I briefly explained who I was, and revealed the evidence I had uncovered. The line went silent for a long moment. I could hear his heavy breathing, as if he were struggling to hold something back. Then his voice came through, rough and trembling. "Attorney Shen, are you telling me the truth?" "It's the truth," I said firmly, "every word of it." His tone suddenly hardened, his long-suppressed fury breaking through. "Then I want you to represent me. I want to sue them, Mark Chen, Hannah Lee, and Sterling and Hall itself. I want them ruined. I want them in prison." My answer was steady, resolute. "Mr. Wong, you have my word. Justice may come late, but it never fails to arrive." When the call ended, I immediately began drafting the lawsuit and preparing the criminal complaint. This time, I wanted to drag them both straight to hell. In the following days, Sterling and Hall's stock plummeted non-stop. Inside the firm, chaos and division spread like wildfire. Several senior partners, desperate to save themselves, publicly cut ties with Mark, and even handed over additional evidence of his misconduct. When a wall is collapsing, everyone wants to give it one last push. Mark quickly became a drowning man, beaten by every wave, a dog everyone wanted to kick. All his real estate and bank accounts were frozen. From one of the most celebrated attorneys in the country, he fell from grace overnight, his name shattered beyond repair. As for Hannah, when she learned she might face criminal charges, she completely broke down. The first sign of her collapse came through her endless phone calls. She called me over and over again like a lunatic. I didn't answer a single one. Then came the texts, starting with venomous curses, turning into desperate pleas, and finally devolving into incoherent hysteria. "Emily, you vicious woman, you'll never have a happy ending. Please, Emily, I was wrong. I swear I was wrong. Please forgive me, I can't go to prison. I'm still young, I can't have a record. It was all Mark. He pushed me, manipulated me, ruined me. Please meet me once, I'll tell you everything. I'll confess everything to you." I stared at her messages, feeling nothing. She had known this day would come. So why hadn't she stopped when she still had the chance? But that last message made me pause. I needed her statement. Hannah was the key witness, the single most crucial piece in exposing the entire criminal network Mark had built. I immediately asked Alan to arrange a meeting in our firm's conference lounge. It had only been a few days since I'd last seen her, but Hannah looked like a completely different person. She was wearing a plain t-shirt and jeans, no makeup, her hair dry and tangled. Her eyes were hollow, lifeless. There was no trace left of the confident, sharp young attorney I had once seen standing tall in court. The moment she saw me, tears streamed down her face. "Emily," she choked, collapsing to her knees before me. "I was wrong. I was so wrong." She grabbed my legs, sobbing so hard she could barely breathe. "Please forgive me. I don't want to go to jail. I'm still young. I can't have a criminal record." I pulled my leg back and looked down at her coldly. "Afraid now? Were you afraid when you wore my nightgown and posed in my bed for photos? Were you afraid when you used the proposal you stole from my husband and stood before the court smirking at me like you'd won?" Her crying weakened until it stopped completely. All that remained on her face was despair. I sat down on the sofa, looking down at her from above. "Tell me everything you know about Mark," I said quietly. "Especially anything related to Lynn Ocean Corporation and Vice President Lee." Hannah's whole body shook. Her eyes widened in terror. "How do you know about that?" "If you didn't want people to find out," I said flatly, "you shouldn't have done it. This is your last chance. Either you cooperate as a witness and get a lighter sentence, or you follow Mark into prison. The choice is yours." The instinct to survive finally crushed whatever illusion of love she still had for Mark. For the next 2 hours, Hannah confessed everything, without holding anything back. She told me how Mark had lured her in with sweet promises and dreams of career success, how he had patiently taught her to forge evidence, step by step, to destroy their opponent in that fraudulent trade case 3 years ago. After that, she whispered, trembling, "We used that victory to establish a connection with Vice President Lee. He became one of our most important clients." Her voice quivered, breaking as the full weight of her betrayal settled over her. Mark said that if they served the client well, he would secure the entire legal portfolio of that company for himself. But I asked coldly, "So the two of you conspired together to use that tactic to take down his competitor?" Hannah nodded. I looked straight into her eyes and told her that the Tianhai Group case was part of the plan. Hannah's face suddenly turned strange. She hesitated for a long time, then, as if her tongue were tied, whispered, "No, not entirely like that. But the Tianhai case was very special to Mark. He said we had to win at all costs because there's someone behind Tianhai who knows a terrible secret about him." My heart dropped a beat. A huge secret, one even I didn't know. "What secret?" I asked. Hannah avoided my gaze, unable to look me in the eye. I don't know the details. He only said it once when he was drunk. He said that behind Tianhai is an old enemy from his college days. That person knows that, back then, to get a guaranteed spot for graduate school, he did something not at all honorable. I almost couldn't breathe. I had known Mark got a direct placement into graduate school. He'd been student body president, stellar achievements, a campus star. I had always thought it was an honor he'd earned. What dishonorable thing? My voice went dry. What was it? Hannah's voice dropped to barely audible. Academic fraud. He took another student's research results, altered a few numbers, and passed it off as his own for publication. The classmate with no impressive achievements had his path to study abroad blocked, while Mark stepped on his shoulders to get the only direct placement. A coldness ran through me. So Mark's plagiarism wasn't new, it was baked into his bones since university. The brilliant young man I'd once loved was a shameless thief. The sunflower image, the My Sunshine pet name, just a mask he'd carefully crafted. That person was now working at Tianhai, Hannah confirmed with a nod. Mark said that person has been trying to expose him since college, she said. That's why he was desperate to destroy Tianhai. He wasn't helping you, he was saving himself. He wanted to use this lawsuit to ruin that person so they'd never have a chance to rise again. At last, Hannah confessed the final secret. Mark had ruined my career not only to pave the way for his mistress, but to bury his dirty past. I was a tool he'd used to erase traces. It was ridiculous. Looking at Hannah's regretful face, I suddenly felt a little pity. Both of us had been deceived by the same man. I stood up without looking at her again. Tell the police and the disciplinary committee everything you just told me. Whether you can get leniency depends on how fully you cooperate, I said, then walked out of the law office. The sunlight outside blinded me. I called Alan. Check one of Mark's college classmates for me, the one who had an academic dispute and may now be working at Tianhai, I said. Alan moved as fast as ever. Half a day later, a name popped up on my phone screen. Lam Vu, currently Chief Technology Officer at Tianhai Group. His profile showed he'd been a computer prodigy and the standout pick for that guaranteed placement back then. I stared at the name and immediately dialed Mr. Wang, Tianhai's CEO. This time, I wanted to send them straight to hell. I needed the help of CTO Liam Wu to come forward as a witness. I needed him to testify. At first, Liam refused. What happened back then was a scar he didn't want reopened. Attorney Shen, it's been years. His voice over the phone was exhausted and worn. I have my own life now. I don't want anything more to do with him. I replied with a firm tone, this isn't about personal grudges. This is about delayed justice. Mark didn't just ruin your life, Liam, I told him. Over the years he kept repeating the same dirty tricks and harmed many people and many companies. This time we have a complete chain of evidence that will stop him for good. Your testimony will be the final blow. You won't be doing this for yourself alone, but for everyone he harmed. After a long silence, Liam finally exhaled as if loosening a burden he had carried for years. All right, I'll go to court. With Liam Wu on board, the three of us, Mr. William Wang, Liam and I, formed an alliance of vengeance. The old commercial fraud case from 3 years ago was officially reopened. The scheme of falsifying evidence and framing a competitor that Mark and Hannah carried out was fully verified. At the Lawyers Association hearing, Hannah, as a witness of shame, confessed the entire plot she and Mark had cooked up. Liam, as a special witness, recounted Mark's college plagiarism and produced the original research files he had kept for years, ironclad proof that could not be denied. Mark was stripped of his law license on the spot. Criminal charges awaited him. The once renowned Sterling and Hall law firm, long an empire of legal prestige, collapsed under the scandal. Clients fled, the firm declared bankruptcy, and assets were liquidated. A commercial empire crumbled in the blink of an eye. On the day of the final trial, I came not as counsel but as an ordinary observer, sitting in the gallery. Mark stood at the defendant's dock in prison garb, his hair shorn short. He had grown thin and hollow-faced, all traces of his former arrogance gone. When the court announced the verdict, 15 years in prison for fabricating evidence, obstructing justice, commercial fraud, and a raft of other charges, he crumpled. Had the police not supported him, he would have fallen to the floor. His gaze swept the courtroom and finally landed on me. In that look were astonishment, unwillingness to accept it, regret, and a faint, incoherent plea that I could not decipher. When the trial ended, I walked out. As I passed him, he suddenly called my name, hoarse as sandpaper scraping his throat. Emily Shen, why are you being so ruthless? We were together for so many years. I stopped but didn't turn around at first. Then I calmly faced him. Mark, do you know what I regret most? I asked. He looked stunned. I don't regret loving you. I regret that it took me so many years to see who you really are. He asked why I had to be so merciless, but I answered simply, because you deserve it. I said no more and turned away. Beneath a flurry of camera flashes and media lights, I strode out of the courthouse. The sky that day was an unusually clear blue. As for Hannah, because she cooperated significantly with the investigation, she received a suspended sentence, her legal career effectively over. I heard she left the city and returned to her hometown. After that, she vanished from public view. Mr. William Wong's company, after being cleared. The wronged company finally received substantial financial compensation from the government and was preparing to restart its business. Liam Wu became one of the founding shareholders, taking charge of the technical research department, his greatest strength. He called me one evening, his voice sincere and steady. "Attorney Shen, thank you. You didn't just help me reclaim justice, you freed me from the guilt I've carried for years." I smiled. "You're the one who deserves thanks for having the courage to stand up." Life seemed to be returning to its natural rhythm. My law firm, after its dramatic comeback, was thriving. Our reputation spread quickly, and the number of clients multiplied several times over. Alan had become my most trusted partner, and together we won case after case. Sometimes I still thought of Mark, of the engraved fountain pen marked ES and MC, of the time he used to call me my sunshine. But there was no longer love in those memories. Not even hate, only distance. To me now, he was just a stranger who had once committed a crime. One weekend, while cleaning my apartment, I stumbled upon an old dusty box tucked in the corner of my study. Inside was a stack of photographs from my college days to my wedding with Mark. I stared at the girl in those pictures, her radiant smile, her eyes brimming with happiness, and felt a strange haze, as if waking from a long dream. Without hesitation, I placed the entire stack into the shredder. As the memories of those years were cut into tiny, irretrievable pieces, I felt a weight lift off me, lighter than I'd ever felt before. My phone rang. It was Alan. "Hey, superstar attorney, what are you up to?" "I'm celebrating a new life," I replied with a laugh. "Then you'd better do it properly. Dinner's on me tonight. Oh, and I'm introducing you to a very handsome guy." Her playful tone made me laugh. After hanging up, I walked over to the window, gazing down at the busy street below. Sunlight poured through the glass, falling softly across my face, warm and gentle. My sun had always been there. It had never needed anyone else to bring it to me. The story ends here.